I'm going to start with a story. In 2013, there was a Call of the Time retreat in Mount Abu, India. And I don't know, it's possible that some of you were actually in that retreat. When I start telling this, you might remember this story. So Dadi Janki was in the room, and there was a man who is close to Dadi. His name is Andrew Stone, and he's in the House of Lords and has come often to Call of the Time, and he considered himself to be a close friend of Dadi's. And I feel comfortable sharing with you because there were probably 70 of us witnessing this engagement between him and Dadi Janki. And so he said to Dadi that that his family hadn't wanted him to come, and that he felt that his family wasn't supporting his spiritual journey, and that what could he do? What could he do to get out of this fix where he was trying to make this big change in his life and they weren't letting him? And so she said to him, Andrew, everything starts with the heart. And I'm going to read you exactly what she said. I took down every word she said that afternoon. And what I'm sharing with you is what she shared with him. She said, Andrew, everything starts with the heart. The heart takes in sorrow, happiness, and love, and harbors feelings. These feelings shape our attitude, our vision, and lastly, our awareness. We have to clean up the heart by dealing with issues and feelings, by taking what we need and placing a full stop to what we don't need. When the heart is true and clean, the attitude and vision also become pure. And only then will the one remain in our awareness. So what she told him basically was that you really couldn't remember God if your heart isn't clean. And she went on to tell him that not only can you not sustain a connection with God, it actually affects your relationship with other people. It affects the way you connect with your work. It affects the way you connect with people, with your family, if there's something in your heart. So what happens in the heart? Gayatri talked about it a little bit this morning, and all of you have in some way alluded to what happened in your heart. And so I'm going to walk through a little bit of what happens. There is a sheet that is going to be available to you when you leave. Because we don't have time, I'm not going to go through that sheet. I'm just going to, you can read through it if you want. But I want to kind of explain to you what she was explaining to him. So we tend to have things that get lodged in our heart, and someone alluded this morning to fear. I think Gayatri alluded to fear, right? Sometimes it's sadness, sometimes it's anxiety, sometimes it's anger, right? Something gets stuck in the heart. And then that thing in the heart becomes, it gets between us and what's actually going on in the world. It's like we experience the world through this thing. And she called it not having a clean heart. So it's not that there wasn't any reason for us to have this thing. Our fear or our anger or our sorrow came from some experience we had. And often it came from an experience we had before we had a way to cope with that experience. We didn't have the understanding to cope with that experience. So there is the experience, then there's our feelings that come up about the experience, and then there's the thoughts we have about what happened. And I'm going to give you a silly example to make the point. So when I was 3 years old, I used to get up every night, walk across the hall, go into my parents' bedroom, and climb in bed with them, which of course wrecked their sleep, right? But I was hoping that they wouldn't notice I was there and I could like soak up whatever little love and attention was available. And inevitably, they would take me back to bed. But one night I got up and I walked across the hall and I opened the door as usual, but I couldn't get the door open. There was a big piece of furniture in front of the door. In desperation, they had blocked the door, right? So I'm there trying to get the door open. So there's the experience. Then the feeling sad. I'm sad, right? I can't get in. And then there's the thought, I'm an outsider. I must not be very lovable, right? And then I go back to bed. Now, that process is what we're talking about that gets in the heart. I'm going to call it a thought form, but you could call it a ghost. You could call it a pattern. You could call it a habit. You could call it lots of things. And we all had some version of that, right? So there's this little thought form, the I'm not important thought form, or the I'm not lovable thought form sitting in my heart. So a few years later, I'm waiting to go to a birthday party. I have my present. I'm waiting for the people to come pick me up. And it gets later and later. And I say, I think they forgot me. My mother said, no, they wouldn't forget you. But yes, they had forgotten me. So they forget me, feeling sad, thought, I must not be that important, right? Or I'm not very loved. Now that original thought form, it connects with the original thing that was there. Now it's a bigger thing, right? Now it's in my heart as a bigger thing. So each similar experience kind of reinforces this feeling that we get in the heart and the sense making we do about it. Now, the thing about this is that we make sense at the age we are. We don't make 25-year-old sense at 3, right? At 3, we make 3-year-old sense. At 8, we make 8-year-old sense. And so the things in the heart are there with the logic, the understanding that we had at that time. Now, when we move out to meet the world, whatever happy face we put on, the thing that's in the heart affects the way we show up, right? So if I think I'm not lovable, I may make extra effort for you to love me. That's one thing I could do. I could work very hard to please you, and you would be completely annoyed with that, right? If I were fawning all over you and trying to make you love me. Or I could push you away, right? I'm going to push you away before you push me away, right? I could develop whatever. We adapt because we have these things going on in the heart. What Dottie said about it was, she said, these feelings shape our attitude, our vision, and our awareness. So it's not trivial that these things are still in the heart. And the thing to understand is that we made the thing, right? We made it to help ourselves. We made it to protect ourselves. I had in my heart this little thought form that my mom was really mean. So this mean mom lived in my heart for a long time. I hate to tell you, decades, this mean mom lived in my heart. Now, why did she live there? Well, she lived there because either I was unlovable or she was mean, right? One of those things had to be true in my child logic. So it was a lot better if she were mean than I was unlovable. So every time I went to meet her, it was the mean mom that I saw, right? No matter what other lovely traits she had, I saw her through this filter of this thought form that I had in my heart. So most people think and feel, most of us feel and think that this is us. It's just who we are. You know, I'm a little bit sad, or I have a little bit of a sad song, or I have a little bit of anger in me, or I have a little bit of resentment that I deal with in me, or whatever. We accept it as part of who we are, and we adapt around it. But it's not who we are. As Lloyd was saying last night, and Gayatri was reinforcing this morning, we are love. You know, the essence of the soul is the current of love, the current of peace, the current of kindness. Those are essential to the soul. Resentment, disappointment, sorrow, all of those things are acquired. They came on top of the soul. They aren't who we really are. And we don't have to live with those. It's really in our best interest to clean the heart, which is what Dottie was saying to Andrew. Sister Mohini had said at one point, if there's any heaviness in the heart, if there is uncertainty, if there is a lack of trust in God, it's like the heart is blocked. We are not able to feel, not able to experience, and not able to totally surrender to God. In other words, not able to get out of the way of our connection with our original purity, our original source. So what we really want to do is we want to be able to remove these thought forms from our heart so that we can have that connection, because it's the connection that cleans the heart. It's the connection between the soul and the source that cleans things in the heart. But if we have these things in between, it's a little bit of a catch-22, right? If I have something in between, then I can't connect. And if I can't connect, I can't clean the heart. So how do I do this? So the first time I did this, I actually was at Jackie and Lee's house. I was there for my birthday, I think, and I went upstairs and I was mulling over what she was saying, and really wanting to finish a couple of things that were going on inside. Like I've heard you say, like let me just finish this. And so I did it by writing, because writing is my world. I did it by writing to each one. And many times since then, I've gone back to refine what I did. And I've done this with a lot of people. And I want to just share a couple of experiences. One is that for a lot of people, what's in their heart is a feeling of blame. someone has done something to me that is so wrong that I cannot forgive them. It was so, so wrong that I cannot forgive them. And I'm thinking of one woman, and of course, in keeping with this retreat, she was in Trinidad, and I was sitting with her at a break, and she came up and she said, "You know, my mother-in-law is really not very nice to me." And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that." She said, "Yeah, she doesn't get me gifts at the holidays. She gets gifts for her daughter, but not for me. She doesn't, if she has a gathering, she doesn't bring me out. She leaves me back in the kitchen. She takes trips. She doesn't take me on the trip. She takes the others. She says really unkind things about me to other people when other people are standing around." I said, I'm so sorry. I said, "Does she live near you?" And she said, "Oh, she's been dead for 35 years. Now, this is this is what happens to us, right? She's still alive. This mother-in-law is still alive and well in the heart. Coming back to this mother-in-law, so blame. We can carry blame in our heart for a long time. And we're thinking that that other person is a recipient of our blame. They deserve us to feel that way, but who's suffering? The mother-in-law is not suffering, right? She's suffered and moved on. We suffer when we let that sit in our heart, right? If we can't clear that out of our heart, we pay a huge price. And how do we clear that out? With forgiveness. Dear thought form of my mother-in-law, I see you're still in my heart and I know why you're there. This blame that I'm feeling, I felt very harmed by that, and it's still sitting in my heart. And so from the bottom of my heart, I forgive you for everything you did, for all the mistakes you made. At the time you did that, you must have thought that that was all you could do. You must have thought that's what you had to do at that time. And I took sorrow from that. But now I forgive you for that. I release you and I release myself from any further sorrow. You have to really, and you're talking to the thought form you made, not to the mother-in-law who's in a cemetery somewhere, right? To the thought form you made, and it's in your heart. There was another guy here at Peace Village. It was on the break, and he came up and he said, I'm carrying guilt that I've carried for a very long time. And I said, "What happened?" And he said, "Well, this was a man in an Indian body." He said, "When I was a teenager, my father left the body, and it fell to me to find a husband for my sister. And I tried to find the right husband for her, but the man that I found for her was an alcoholic. And she spent her whole life with this alcoholic, and it's my fault." You tell he really had suffered, from this mistake. And I said to him, "Well, when you did this, was it your intention to find an alcoholic?" And he said, "Well, no." I said, "Did you intend to do the best you could by your sister?" And he said, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Don't you think it's time for you to forgive yourself for this?" And he said, "But she's still with the guy." And I said, "But yes, but you don't need to carry forever this mistake you made. So you have to apologize. Not, you don't need to drive down the street and knock on her door, but in your heart, right? The guilt is in your heart. So apologize in your heart. If you additionally want to drive down the street and talk to her, that's fine. But the pain is here, right? That I made this huge mistake." So you say in your heart, "I realize that though I attempted to do what I thought was best, that what I did ended up causing harm, and I'm sorry for that. I hope you'll accept my apology, and I forgive myself for this thing that ended up causing sorrow. But you have to really forgive yourself, right? You can't just say that. You have to really see that you did what you could, knowing what you knew at that time, the age you were, the time it was, whatever you understood, you did the best you could, right? And then you release yourself from that thing. So the cleaning of the heart is a matter of noticing in what way are you holding things in the heart that are causing you, continuing to cause you some kind of sorrow. Now, what Dottie said to Andrew was that she felt that he had a karmic bondage, that he had some kind of a bondage with these people who were holding him back. And she said to him, so when you have a bondage with someone, the way you can tell that it's a bondage is you keep trying to make them happy, but no matter how much you try to make them happy, they don't get happy. Does anyone have that kind of relationship? You just keep on trying to make them happy, but they never get happy. You try to, if one of you tries to leave, there's sorrow. If you stay, there's sorrow. If you leave, there's sorrow, right? You're in a bondage. There's a push-pull in the bondage. So she said to him, you need to you need to become detached. You need to let go of this bondage. Now, one of the handouts that'll be at the back of the room talks more about this, but in essence, our bondage comes because we want something from the other person. It may be just we want them to thank us, or we want them to appreciate us, or we want them to take our advice, or we want them to, sometimes the wants are very small. Sometimes the wants are bigger. We want them to make a bit of a change in who they are or what they're doing. But that wanting, that continuous wanting is what brings the sorrow. So when you're ending a karmic bondage, when you're trying to exit a bondage, a relationship of bondage, you have to switch from wanting from them to having love and good wishes for them. Genuine, true love and good wishes. Bhavana, loving feelings for them. May things go well for you. Because if you're doing something for them, and I don't remember who was talking about this, one of you, if we do things for people to the point of our exhaustion and we're running on empty, right? We're giving and we're giving and we're running on empty. The shift we have to make is we fill ourselves with love and we give from overflow. Then we don't want anything from them. If I'm full and I'm just sharing with you because I'm so full, I don't need you to say thank you or do something back or whatever. It's just spilling over, right? But so many in the name of service, we keep giving and we don't have any place to give from anymore, right? We're so exhausted. So what she was trying to explain to him was if he could fill himself with the highest form of love is God's love. But you have a reservoir of love inside too, right? So fill yourself with your own love, fill yourself with the love from God. And then when you're full, then you give from overflow. Then you're not wanting. It exits that bondage, that place of bondage. So these feelings, the feeling of guilt, the feeling of blame, the feeling of wanting or disappointment, the feeling of betrayal, the feeling of disappointment, all of those things are what Dottie was talking about in the room that day. And she was saying, these are things that prevent your heart from being clean. She called it soft deal, clean heart. Because when your heart is clear of those things, not because you've suppressed them, not because you push them down, but because you have invited them out of your heart. Now you have access. Now this love from source, this original divine love that is your property anyway, can flow into you because there's nothing between you and that. So what I'm going to invite you to do in silence, I'll tell you what, let's take a minute. Let's just take a minute and go inside. I think most of us actually know what's in the heart, but let's take a minute. I'm going to just invite you to get real quiet. How many of you are visual people? How many of you see things inside? Okay. How many of you more feel things inside? Okay, so let's try to do both. So take a minute and just sit quietly. And we're going to make a little journey into the heart. So when you have time later this afternoon, you know what you're working with. So first, let's practice with you. Each of us has this, what I'm going to call like a wand, like a magic wand. And when we put that wand of attention on something, it comes in front of us. So take your wand of attention and put it on your favorite place in the world. Just bring in front of you your absolute favorite place in the whole world. It could be a place in nature. It could be your grandmother's kitchen. It could be any place that takes you to a feeling of safety and love. So bring that place in front of you. And if you're visual, you will see that place. Maybe you'll smell a place. Maybe you'll hear that place. Or if you're more of a feeling person, maybe you'll feel what it's like to be in that place. To allow yourself to be in that place. So that you can actually have the experience of that place. And then take your wand of attention and use it to bring in front of you a face that you love very much. So bring this face in front of you. And you might see this face, eyes, a smile. You might feel the presence of this one. So now use your wand of attention to go to the door of your heart. And you're there at the door of your heart, and you use your wand to tap on that door, and it opens, and you step inside your heart. Your heart is a beautiful place. Heart's filled with love and light, beauty. And when you step at the back of your heart, you just quietly watch your heart. And just notice what else is in your heart, if anything else is in your heart, that you might have allowed to stay too long. So just take a minute and just watch your heart. And then when the moment's right, you can bring yourself back. Close respectfully that door of your heart and bring yourself back. So when I did this, I've done this many times actually, this work with my heart. And what I found is you may have found too that sometimes there's more than one thing in your heart. Sometimes there's a few things in your heart. But I find you have to remove them one at a time. It's like a kind of heart surgery, right? You can't just open the door and you know, blow the vacuum into your heart. You have to really, with great deal of respect, invite them out. And there's a sheet at the back of the room you can use or not use. If it's helpful, you can use it, which is writing a letter to your thought form. And so here's what mine sounded like. I've revised it over the years as I've removed different things. But, and I did it in my journal. So I would say, dear thought form of my mean mom, I know that I am innately light, loving, happy, whatever. And I see that you have somehow made a place in my heart. Now, if you know why it came, you can say, I know why you came. You came to protect me from feeling unlovable, or you came because you protect me from feeling like I'm not a part of the family, or whatever, whatever. If you don't know why it came, it doesn't matter. But now I am wiser and more experienced and able to handle things that might have upset me before. Because if you made this at 3 or 5 or 10 or 12 or 15, when you come back, you can see that it's not the same, right? My parents had 2 children under 3. They were sleep deprived. They were desperate, right, to have a good night's sleep. I get that now. So I'm able to understand things now I didn't understand before. If you found blame in your heart, then you put a little extra time into that. I forgive so and so completely for what he or she did. I forgive my mother-in-law completely for what she did, and I release her from any further responsibility. Right? You really let that go. If you found guilt in your heart, I apologize for whatever I thought, whatever I said, whatever I did to you in the moment. Given what I knew then, I did what I thought I had to do. I see now that it may have caused harm, and I apologize completely and experience your forgiveness. And then you really move it out of your heart, either visually or with your feelings. You move it out. Now, you're not suppressing it, right? You have respect for the thing you made. This thought form, you made it with good intention. So you're clearing it out with care. I want you to leave my heart and never return. Please leave now. And in your mind, you walk it out of your heart. Now, the most important part of this whole thing is not this part, it's the part that's now, which is you fill your heart with God's love. You make a connection and you let that current of love, which is the natural state of the soul, fill your heart. That's what dissolves what was there. It's that process of connecting, and it's like a waterfall, or it's like a current, like beams, rays. That's the way that feels. It's like a current, and you let that clean your heart. And you can do that for 5 minutes. You can do it for 5 hours. You can do it the rest of your life. But that's the process that cleans. Now, you know how it is if you have a couch in front of the TV and you sit in the same place every night? You know that little dent in the couch? That's the way it is with your heart. If you've been holding this little thing, this little sorrow, or this little fear, or maybe not so little fear, or anger, or whatever in your heart, you will be tempted to put it back in because it'll feel a little off without it there. So you have to be very vigilant. You have to really pay attention. Once you've gotten that clear feeling, which you get after that meditation, that love meditation, you have to be really vigilant not to pull it back in, because it will come back, kind of like, need me? And you have to say, nope, finish, right? If you've ever tried to stop any habit, smoking, change your diet, whatever, there is that period when it's so persistent. You would experience that here too, because your heart has been used to holding this. And you've also kind of accepted that it's a part of your personality on a subtle level. I kind of have a sad song, right? Inside. Or I've got this feisty, angry part of me. It's just in there. But it's not who you are. It's an acquired thing. And as soon as you see it and decide you don't want it in there anymore, you can invite it out, clean the heart, and then be watchful for a while until it lets you go, or you let it go, one or the other. Once you do this, you're free. This is an aspect of freedom. Now, Lloyd talked last night about victimhood, right? About how sometimes being a victim, and there's many versions of this. I'm just using the example he used last night. This being a victim is an aspect of having something stuck in the heart, right? I'm not really free because I've got this thing going on inside. What we have to understand is that we made the thing that's in the heart. We made the thought form. It's a mix of memory and feeling and thought. And it's like a little tangled ghost that we made. And that, as Dottie said, everything starts with the heart. Things get stuck. They take refuge there. Because we made it, we can unmake it. It's not a part of us. So the invitation for this afternoon is to clean your heart. Now, you don't need to use what I'm proposing. There are some sheets at the back of the room if you want to use that. You can use whatever method works for you. But why not now, right? I mean, we're going to wait on you all weekend. We're going to feed you and care for you, etc. You don't have to worry about anything. So this is the time when you can take up something that has been, that there's not been time for, and make time for that. Because there's probably nothing more important for you to do for yourself than clean these ghosts. Or maybe there's just one ghost. Clean these ghosts or this thought form out of your heart so you can be free. Because once you're free, then you're so light. Every relationship changes. Your own sense of self changes. And most important, your connection with your true father, your true mother changes. Because now there's nothing between you and them. I mean, just to go back to my mother, once I took this mean mom out of my heart and I looked at my cute little mother, I thought, gosh, I've lost all this time. I've got to catch up. And she was living at 58th and First, for those of you who know New York City. So I'd get out at Penn Station, and as I made my way to their apartment, I'd be thinking how to just cover her with love. I'd buy chocolates, I'd buy flowers, and by the time I got to their place and I rang the doorbell and her husband opened the door, I would just shower her with love. Because it wasn't about what she did back, right? If she was cranky and whatever, it didn't matter because it was about me loving her. And the success was, did I love her? And I did. And so it was a big victory, whether she was cranky or loving or said thank you or whatever. It changes everything. You know, it's a move that can change everything. And so it's important not to let those relationships, not one more day. Don't let it stay in your heart even till tomorrow, right? Just give yourself the gift of clearing it out. Now we have set aside, we've asked the entire campus to be in silence. Let's see how they do to support your silence. We've asked the kitchen to be in silence. So we're and tomorrow afternoon, you can choose to extend your silence. We have kept it unscheduled. So if you want to do the same thing tomorrow afternoon, we will again ask the house to support you. But today, for sure, we've asked them to hold silence so that you could do what you need to do. So our encouragement for you is to use the day to liberate yourself. To whatever it is that's been between you and joy, whatever it is that's been between you and freedom, whatever it is that's been between you and God, today is the day, right? This weekend is the weekend, and we're all in the same space of support. So, and I'm happy to chat if any of you feels like you've got your part way there and you're not all the way there. Walk to one of the house phones and call extension 25 and I'll come meet you and we'll chat about what's going on with your heart. All right.